101. Are y'all ready to learn something today? We are ready to do something today. I'm so excited that you're here today because the topic that we're going to be talking about, we've not done this way before. So, well, I guess you're going to be the guinea pigs. But it's a really good topic. It's something that we've had a lot of conversation about. So I'm excited to have you here. And thank you for coming, especially in the heat. But you know, it's only going to get a little warmer. We're in August now. So we'll get through it. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started with selling the family home. And I'm Ingrid Sullivan, and I'm with Sullivan & Sullivan Real Estate and Senior Downsizing Experts and the Smart Senior Series. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for being here again. Okay, so one last thing before we move on to our program. I just wanted to make sure that you know that there's some things that are going to be in your handout today that pertain to our conversation. We'll actually bring those up as we talk about those, like this beautiful colored snake that we have in here. We're going to talk about that, and I wanted you to know that those things are there so that as you're having questions about having a home inspection, or you have questions about what does that look like if my house was on the market, a lot of those things are here for you to refer back to. And of course, the notes page at the very end. All right, well, let's go ahead and get her going. So how many of you, just to kind of get us started so that we know our audience today, how many of you, with a raise of hands, have been involved in a real estate transaction within the last 10 years? 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay, 3 people, all right. And was that for your primary property, your current property? Okay. How about for a secondary home? Maybe a vacation home? Yes, okay. John, you should raise your hand. We're not there yet, but we're working on it.
Well, that's encouraging.
We'll talk about that after we talk to Troy. Or how about this? How many of you have actually bought some investment properties? Anybody here own investment properties? Okay. All right. That really helps us as we go through our content today, because sometimes when you have an audience that has been involved in a real estate transaction within the last 5 years, things have changed. So it kind of helps us knowing who you are, what your experience has been, so that we know what kind of detail we really need to tell you. Because we want to set this up today to be like a coffee talk, if you will. We've got some questions that we're going to ask these people here, and I want to make sure that they're relevant and pertinent to where you are right now with the knowledge that you have. Does that sound like a good idea? Okay, great. All right, so keeping this in mind, the purpose of our seminar today, selling the family home, value versus convenience. What I want to share with you is that there are a lot of different opinions. Ours is not the only one, but the team that I have today, we're going to be talking about those experiences as we have experienced them in our business, because we've been in the business for a while, as you can tell. But I want to make sure that you know that there may be some knowledge that you gain today that someone else that you know that may actually be in the real estate business may say, oh no, I did it a different way, or it's something different for me, just so that you kind of have an idea. So we're presenting that to you in a way that we feel would be easier for you to understand, because we feel like we know a lot of you over the time that we've been together, but there's always a difference of opinion, just keeping that in mind. Going to the first one, so different types of value. So today we're going to be sharing information about value versus convenience. And here, as we talk about value today and its content, today it's going to actually be financial value, if you will. And in some cases, for some people, financial could mean this. I'm thinking about selling my home because I don't need all that space anymore. My house has been paid for. I want to make a move, so I'm hoping that I can gain as much as possible from that, which would fall into financial and monetary. For some people, it's, I'd like to make a move, but I still have a little mortgage, And what I need to do is I need to get my house sold so I can pay that off and do the next thing that's in my goal list. How about this one? Strategic. So strategically, it makes sense for me to make a change because we had a gentleman in here that's working here at the Botanic Gardens earlier today said, I don't need all that anymore. I'm young, I'm in my 50s, I've got a lot of life to live, but I really am not interested in maintaining a home anymore. So strategically for him, it made sense to let that go. And timing-wise, for a lot of people, timing could be, well, I have signed a contract with Ken at Stevenson Oaks, and I've got 45 days before I can take possession of my new home. So I need to get going with it and start making plans on what to do with the home I have right now. Or, I know I really want to do something. I am thinking about it, but I'd like to do something next year because I want to have one last Christmas in this house. Timing-wise, might be something to consider. How about the next one? Emotional. Well, we can all relate to that. We have so many memories here. Or, oh my gosh, if I have to fix another thing, right? If I have to fix another thing, I'm done with this. And mental. I mean, it's a lot, and I will share this with you. I told the team this morning, there's a gentleman that lives across the street from me. John and I have lived in our house 28 years. And the first week that I lived there, I happened to see him in the grocery store, in the produce section. So I walked up and said, hey, I'm your neighbor across the street. Hi. And he said, I don't neighbor. I was like, whoa, okay. You know, and every now and then it would be like this, but not really. Well, now all of a sudden for him, timing-wise and emotional for him, and I think also financial, he has his house on the market. I know, we live across the street, but remember, we don't neighbor. And he has been killing himself every night. He's in his garage, packing stuff out and putting it out on the curb. So for me, looking across the street, I'm thinking, oh gosh, I bet nobody's helping him. His kids are too busy. He's decided he can do it all himself. And it's a lot of stress. All of this has come about because last April, he walked across the street after not speaking to us all these years and said he had lost his wife. And we felt really bad for him. I mean, he was just beside himself that he had lost his wife and he didn't know how long he could stay in the house. So for him, the emotional and the mental has been huge. And we're wishing him well. I think he closes, based on what we can tell, on Monday. So he'll be moving on to something different. So choosing a convenient way to sell and have the most value depends on what those things mean to you. All right, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to welcome our panel today. And let's go ahead and start with John Sullivan. And John, if you would just share with our audience a little bit about your background.
Well, I married Ingrid a long time ago. Actually, in the early to mid 90s, we got involved in real estate because we were some of the first people to buy PC computers, and we learned how to use them. And we had actually my son's godmother and another friend who are realtors, and they were going, we need to learn how to use computers. So we were teaching real estate agents how to use computers and databases and that type of thing. So that was when we first got introduced to real estate. In 2005, when we moved to Texas, got our real estate licenses, and Ingrid started working selling real estate. And in 2008, I started training for a title company, just teaching agents how to use computers at that time. And then we decided in 2008, since it was the worst time in real estate and it crashed, that I would go full-time with Ingrid and start selling houses.
And we're still married, and we're still doing it.
I think the average sales price then was like $125,000 or something like that. But anyway, that's a little bit about my background.
Okay, and so we're now going to go to, Debbie's running the clicker today. We're going to go to Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott Lewis. I'm with Action Realty Inspection Services. I've been inspecting for a little over 15 years, 5,000 to 6,000 home inspections. I have a background in construction management. I've done construction my whole life. I moved to Texas in, can't remember, '05 or '06. I'm a Yankee, originally from Pennsylvania.
Sorry.
Yeah. But that's what I do, home inspections full-time pretty much.
And we've really enjoyed getting to know him. He's taught us a lot.
A good home inspector is so important to us as we help,
Yeah.
especially as a buyer's agent, helping
Yes.
buyers.
So now we have Paige first.
I'm Paige First, and I am fairly new to Sullivan Real Estate. And my background professionally has been in social work, and you might think that it's completely unrelated to real estate, but it's not. The last 15 years I worked with homeless people, and I help them become homed. And basically, a social worker is a coach who helps people navigate and find resources to help them reach their goals. And for my clients, they were wanting to be housed and needed all the resources and direction to get there. So that shifted to real estate in 2020. And at that time, I joined my sister and her husband and got to learn from their kitchen table, and got my real estate license. And as I was learning, I got interested in some different specialties, and I went to Oklahoma City and started doing a training where I met Ingrid and John. And one thing I learned, you may not know, the organization that we're both all a part of is nationwide, and they are some of the top senior real estate institute coaches. They coach others in the country, and they've been doing what they're doing at a very high level for a long time. They make it look easy, but I had the opportunity to join them, and that was a no-brainer. So my sister and her husband encouraged me to do that, and I was so happy to do that and have gotten to learn a lot. So I've worked a lot as a buyer's agent, helping buyers, and I've found now that that really helps me coach sellers in understanding what buyers are looking for.
Right, we'll get to that. Great. Right. So let's take a look at this, kind of just going through their roles, because while they're alike, I mean, you can be a listing agent and a buyer's agent. I've been both of those roles many times in my career. We want you to see the differences and how they work together to bring a transaction together. So, John, I've got some questions for you. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what a listing agent does.
Well, one of the handouts you have is the multicolored snake. That kind of shows what I do there, but let me talk a little bit
That's great.
more about it. That's the flow chart of a transaction. But it starts when we start working with a seller who's thinking about selling their house. And usually they want to know, well, what do you think my house is worth? So one of the things we do is prepare market analysis, which tells them what we think in the current market it'll bring. And so there's several things that have play into that. One, what is the condition of the house? Two, where is it located? And three, how soon do you want to sell? Then when they decide to sell, we get a contract that says they want to work with us and have us be their listing agent. And so we get photography done, and John does a lot of real estate photography. And I remember way back when you'd take a few pictures and things, or sometimes people take them on their phone, but really it's more involved in that now. I mean, that's part of what sells the house, is having great pictures. And used to be 4 or 5 years ago, really you didn't do drone shots, but now if you don't do a drone shot, you're one of the few that doesn't display a house that way. So the photography is come light years forward too, and that's part of what we coordinate. Preparing the house condition, we make recommendations about repairs that would help the house sell. We have it staged. If it's a vacant house, people have moved out, we still light stage it. We'll put pictures in, toiletries in the bathroom, things in the kitchen. And sometimes if it's stagnant or the neighborhood it's in, it's not selling, we hire another company to bring in more furniture to help the house sell, because we just did that in the last 4 or 5 months, and as soon as we brought in furniture and staged a few rooms, we had a contract in a week. So those are some of the things that we do. Once we get a contract, we help the seller negotiate the whole thing, and then ultimately we come to the closing. But there's a lot of paperwork along the way. Unfortunately, we have Debbie to help us with our contracts and help us keep the folders together and everything, because usually there's that thick of a folder when we finish a transaction with all the contracts and paperwork that goes with selling a house.
Well, so what you didn't know is that, there's more to Debbie than just helping the smart seniors. I mean, she does a lot of the stuff that you have here, but really her main function when she came to work with us was to be our, what they call, transaction coordinator. So she's very picky about making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and if we don't do the job the right way, we get it back, and we don't bring it back to her until it is. So, I mean, she's been a very integral part. And some realtors, if they're just getting started, they do all of that on their own, and we did that for a number of years, but it's a lot of pressure to make sure everything gets turned in right, because that's how we make a living. And if the paperwork isn't right, then nothing happens. So that's the transaction side of it. So going from there, let's talk to Paige and find out a little bit more about what her role is when she's working with buyers. And keep this in mind, a couple of things here. Right now, we're just trying to establish who's who and what do they do. That's the important part of it. And then as we get more into the meat of this, we're going to talk a little bit more about, well, how does that work and with that kind of client. So Paige, tell us, what is a buyer's agent?
A buyer's agent is the agent who represents the interest of only the buyer. It is our fiduciary responsibility to make sure their interest is represented, just as the seller's agent is only representing the seller's interest. And while we have real estate ethics that everyone follows, that is our interest. So it is my job to find out what the buyer wants, what are their needs, and what is their, I don't help them decide what their budget is, but I have to understand what their budget is, so I'm directing them properly to the homes that fit, so that I can show them the right stuff.
And when you do that, just kind of asking you a question, when you help them decide their budget, I call it their buying power.
Yeah.
Typically, unless they're cash, there's a lender involved with that, and that's an important part of this.
Absolutely, and the lender and even the title company are important, and I'll explain that in a minute, but the lender is the one who will really help you work through the nuts and bolts of what's important with your budget. So there's one thing that's important as far as your debt to income ratios and what you can handle monthly, what are you going to put down, but they're also going to help you consider taxes on the cost of a home, the almost doubled insurance costs, property insurance costs that are now, and will there be an HOA? That has to be figured into your monthly expense. And if you bought 30 or 40 years ago, we didn't usually have an HOA to deal with. So they're going to help you navigate all that. Once we find a home, so we'll schedule, look at lots of homes, and I'll help you kind of go through each home, look at pros and cons of each, see if they match what it was that you really stated your needs were.
And I think you have a form in there that you kind of like to use.
Yeah, I do. We have one that I ask you to fill out, and it's your top 5 must-haves. It's a handout that you've got in your packet. And it's just one that kind of keeps reminding us, what was it that when we started, before we started seeing houses with all the bright and shiny objects inside, What was it that we really wanted? And we keep going back to that, and if we need to revise it, we will. But if we stray too far from this, sometimes we get off track and they end up being disappointed with the things they start looking at, because they might start looking at the bright and shiny and then self-correct, but then we may have wasted some time. So once we narrow down and find what we want, we prepare offers, we start looking at contracts, and there's lots of terms, and these are all of our negotiation terms. So there's a lot to discuss, and they affect the outcome of how closing works, how affordable it is, and how you would move forward. You probably will want some direction with that.
Yeah, right.
And the one thing I wanted to say about working with the title company as well is there are lots of timelines. So the seller has timelines that you're going to have to follow with a contract. The buyer has even more. And the title company works real closely with the buyer's agent and the seller's agent to make sure everyone stays tight on their timelines.
Yeah.
If you miss a timeline, you miss opportunities in that contract to either terminate when you could have or negotiate a term.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now the other party that's very involved in this is the home inspector. And we've got several things that we're going to talk to Scott about. But Scott, tell us, who's a home inspector? Can anybody do your kind of job?
No, so a home inspector is licensed by the state of Texas, the Texas Real Estate Commission, same as realtors. And it's an independent third party. I get asked all the time when I get there, do you think I'm paying too much for the house? I really have no clue what the house is worth. I don't know what you're paying for it. We don't get any of them numbers. Like I said, we're licensed by the state. We have a state form we have to fill out. So every inspection company has to fill out the same form, and it's the same order. And we look at everything from the roof to the foundation and everything in between. There's other optional inspection we can do with like septic or sprinkler. I'm EDI certified, so I can do stucco and moisture intrusion, wood destroying insect inspections. So we look at everything in the house. And just see how the major components of the house as well. So
Okay. So I have a question for you. We're talking about two different parties today. We're talking about sellers and we're talking about buyers. Is there a difference in the home inspection that you would do for one versus the other?
no, same exact.
Same exact one?
Yep.
That's good to
Because
know.
we're licensed, because the Texas Real Estate Commission mandates on that.
The same thing?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know, because I think at one point that was a little bit different.
It was a little
And it's
bit
been a
different.
while ago.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So I would like to ask you another question. You talked about different types of inspections, and you mentioned sewer. But I think also where it's important is when you're working with a home inspector, you want somebody that's skilled in things like a VA home inspection or an FHA, because that's a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, they are a little different. They can still use our report, but there is FHA inspectors that have to come out. I don't do FHA.
Okay. Okay. And is that just by choice?
Yeah, and it's just always been by choice. We've never done it.
Okay.
It's a little different.
Okay.
And then VA, for some reason, they're big on termite reports. If you don't have a termite report in VA, you're not getting the house.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
That's really
they
good.
require a termite report.
Okay, great, great. The other thing I had for you here was, do you do inspections on pools?
Yeah, pools.
Okay, so,
sprinklers.
gosh, I mean, do you get in there and inspect it or what?
No, sometimes I want to jump in when it's hot like it is now. Or maybe accidentally drop a tool, but no, we don't get in it. But we run the equipment, check the surface, make sure the pumps and blower and heater and everything works fine.
Okay, okay. How about wells?
We do wells.
Okay.
Just check the pressure tank. We always take a water sample to the lab to get it tested for chloroform and E. coli.
Okay, good. So, I mean, I know in our role, there's a lot of inspectors, home inspectors out there.
Mm-hmm.
But is everybody skilled to do those things like wells and sewer systems, aerobic, maybe if they've got land? Is that something special that you have to be trained for?
There's really no license for any of it.
Uh-huh.
You know, you can go through NOT, which is like the septic, but you don't have to be licensed for it, but there's a lot of inspectors that really don't know how to inspect them.
Anything different about somebody that may have an older home like Pier and Beam?
Yeah, you have to crawl underneath it.
Get the fit.
Yeah.
Okay, gotta crawl underneath it,
Yeah.
okay. And I know that there are some inspectors that really don't
Yeah,
like
there's a
doing
lot of
that.
inspectors that won't crawl underneath it.
Yeah.
But
Well, sometimes that
unfortunately, I
hole's
do.
kind of small to get in there.
It is kind of small. You'd be surprised what I can fit in.
You can get in but can't get out.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, well, let's go ahead and move forward. So here's something that's important is, you know, we used to always wait for the buyer's agent to bring the inspection to our seller. But over the last, I'm going to say couple of years, and John's going to talk more about this, over the last couple of years, we've actually encouraged our sellers to get a home inspection, what they call pre-listing inspection. And John, can you talk to us a little bit about why that might be important?
Ingrid, I think you skipped a page.
Huh?
You skipped a page.
I skipped a page?
Or maybe you're out of order.
Maybe I don't have that page. Oh, okay, where am I at? Priorities, okay. I don't have that one. All right, well, let me have yours. Okay, that's good, yeah. Okay, so, all right, we're back on track here. See, I told you it's the first time, so give me some grace. Understanding priorities of sellers and buyers. So, John, you're still on. So talk about that.
Well, what does value mean when selling a home? That's the question. And so what we try to do is, there's a lot of different ways to sell a home, but most people want us to net them the most money possible in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of stress. Wouldn't you agree that's a good plan when you're
Yep.
selling a home? And so first we have to decide, well, what do we think the house would sell for? So we have to prepare a report using comparable properties. And when you're looking for comparable properties, first thing you're looking for, is it a one-story or a two-story house? So we don't want to compare two stories to one stories and vice versa. Where is it located? We're really lucky if we can find enough comparable sold properties. And sold properties are the most accurate in determining the value, not what other properties are listed for, but what they sold for in the last 6 months. That's what an appraiser works with. So we look for sold properties as close as possible. Sometimes we can't find them in the subdivision, so another way we look is what properties feed into the elementary school. Sometimes we expand out into the zip code. The other things we look for is year build. So we try to find something 3 or 4 years before and after. So if it was built in like 1995, I might look for 1991 to 1998 or something like that and try to find comparable properties to look at. And then the comparable properties, have they been all updated and my property could use updating? Or is it updated and the comparables don't look as updated? So we have to judge those things, and sometimes we can give factors to, like, what is a pool worth, or what is it like if they have updated flooring and that type of thing. So that's part of the process, is finding out what a home is worth. And then making sure it's prepared. Make sure it's nice and clean before it's put on the market. Sometimes we suggest having a house cleaner come in and help you get it all ready. Repairs, sometimes we'd suggest you get some repairs done before you actually put it on the market to make it show better.
Yeah.
What is your budget? That's an important question. So if there's some repairs that need to be done, do you have a budget for that? And then finally, we want to make sure it's staged nicely so it looks good, and get it ready for our photographer to come in and take pictures.
Yeah. And I want to just add one thing to that, John. So you mentioned we try to find things that are going to be similar, and in a lot of cases now, there's a lot of homes that have been sold what we call off market. So they may have been sold to an investor and they're not reported to the system that we use, the multiple listing system, or it's often referred to as MLS. So when we're looking for comparables, we have to look at the ones that are of record, unless we know that in that particular neighborhood there were 5 or 6 of those that were sold off market. And we'll talk more about what that off market looks like when we go, as we go forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on now that I'm back on track here. And we're going to talk to Paige, and she's going to tell us a little bit about those homes that she's wanting to show her clients.
Yeah, for me, most of my buyers are looking for a move-in ready home. And what that means is they want to move in pretty quickly after they close on the house and don't have to do anything.
Right.
They may just do a few little things, or they already know exactly what they're going to do. They may even want to have it done before they move in, and then, you know, a week later be able to move straight in. And for sure, all the big ticket items done before they close. And they're willing to pay a little bit more if the really big ticket items are done. They want to update a kitchen, bathrooms, foundation and roof, HVAC. Those are the big things that people are looking at to have been updated. If I have someone that comes to me and says, find me a real dog that needs a lot of work, they're called investors.
Yeah.
Fixer-upper. Yeah, they're wanting a fixer-upper.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, you know, even with on the selling side or on the buying side, when somebody says, find me something, every person's description of a fixer-upper is different. Jim, you might say, I want something that just needs the floors replaced and paint. And somebody else would say, well, I'm good if I've got to knock out a couple of walls and build in a patio. So every person's term for fixer-upper is different when they're looking for houses. And of course, obviously the value's in what are they going to pay for that.
Yep.
Scott, how about you?
Well, home inspections, like I said, we're required to write up certain things called the standard of practice. So if it was a 1950s home versus 2024, things look a lot different on the report. But we still have to report GFCI is missing, even though in 1950 they weren't required. So buyers look for the bigger issues, so like roof, foundation, electrical issues, plumbing issues. You know, we kind of explained to them like the GFCI stuff. It wasn't there when the home was built, but it is required now. It's as is, or grandfathered is what we call it. So the bigger issues, roof, foundation, electrical, plumbing, water heater, that kind of stuff.
So when you say grandfathered, so if it's up to code now and it's grandfathered in, grandfathered meaning you can skip that? Or the advice would be to update it? Well,
it probably depends, but you know, again, you don't have to fix anything on the report that we,
Yeah.
you know, or the the inspection report at all. So it
Okay.
just depends what people can live with.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. So move-in ready homes. You know, that term move-in ready, so Paige was talking about how her buyers are really looking for something move-in ready. And just elaborate on that. We've got some things here, Paige, that you're going to share from your notes.
Yeah, they're essentially, like I said, kind of the big ticket items. They're looking for a sound structure. If you know, the foundation, the big stuff, the roof, the functional systems, the electrical, the HVAC, the plumbing, clean and well maintained. They can walk around and you can tell when you walk into a home if someone's lived there for 40 years and loved that house. If they've loved the outside of it, they've probably loved what's behind the walls.
I can tell.
You can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so one comment I wanted to make about this man and all good inspectors is a lot of times Dad wants to come with my young buyers, and it's okay if Dad comes. They think they might know more than the inspector. We got to have the inspector there, and we need his perspective. Ideally, the buyer wants no repairs, like that's their goal, no repairs. And they need to know it's safe. The electric, all that stuff.
Yeah. So we were talking this morning as we were prepping for this, and I'm sure that I've mentioned this in the past, but when you get home today, look at your ceiling and look at your vents. And if you see fuzz hanging from the vents, tell us about what your buyers say about that.
If they see anything dark on those vent registers, they go, it's got mold.
I like it
They're
all the
scared to
time.
death.
Yeah.
They're like, we have to leave. I'm like, oh, I don't think it's mold.
Probably just need to be dusted.
And they don't know that mold's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
All right.
check those, clean them,
So
replace
now,
them.
let's move on to maximizing value. And on this particular situation, we want to really talk a little bit more to our listing agent on this. What is maximizing value in the seller's perspective?
Well, decluttering the home.
My pages are all out of order.
Sometimes people kind of overdo it on the furniture in some of the rooms. So one of our jobs, and sometimes the stager will go in and do it for us, but it just depends. But we may ask some people, maybe you should put these pieces of furniture in the garage. It's okay to put them in there when buyers are looking because they just say, oh, they're just getting ready to move.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out of there. But we want it to appear open and not cluttered and too tight in some of the rooms. And that's why staging is really important for us, and how the house shows makes a difference of whether somebody wants to make an offer and do they want to make a good offer on it or not. Also, how we market the home. Our job is to get as many buyers in that front door as possible. So in addition to when we put it in the MLS, it goes out to Zillow, Realtor.com, and all those. But we actually run and pay for ads in Facebook, and I've even put them in LinkedIn and other social media sites, so more people will see it, and that's part of our job to attract it. Then what's important for the seller is have a flexibility on showing. Some people say, well, we can't show it here, and so if you cut the hours or the availability of the house, that means less people can come to see it.
Yeah.
Leave during the inspection.
Yeah, well, leave during the inspection, Scott said, which is important, but you really need to leave when buyers are showing the house. They don't want the seller following them around and point, oh, did you notice we did this and things. So you can just get in your car and drive up a couple houses and just wait for them to leave the house. And you don't have to go away, but some of our sellers sometimes will plan a day away while there's a lot of showings on the house, so they don't have to go in and out so many times. If you have pets, they need to be secured. We just sold a house, and they had 2 Great Danes.
Oh my gosh.
So they had 2 huge cages in there, and they had a parrot that bites too. So we had to put a little sign on the bird cage saying, do not stick your finger into there because the parrot will bite your finger.
Yeah.
So these are some of the other things that we do to get a house ready to show and make it look as good as possible, as well as make sure that people don't get hurt when they're coming through the house by trying to pet a parrot.
Yeah, and one thing that is so hard is when I'm scheduling a house and I look at the showing instructions and it says, make sure you don't let the cat out of the house. Of course, that has to happen 1 or 2 times. We walk in, I'm like, we can't let the cat out of the house, okay? So we're like, where's the cat? Well, I don't see a cat. Where's the cat? Did you see the cat? Did the cat get out? Did you close the door? And someone goes out the back door. Did the cat go out? The cat's gone out. And then you're chasing the cat. It's not good.
Yeah.
Secure the animals. And the cat's not going to stay under the bed, trust me.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, is it my turn?
Yes, it's
'Cause I
your
took it. Okay, so from my perspective, I'll tell you what the buyers are looking for. They want to get in your house, so make it easy on them, okay? So another interesting thing, in this day and age, the buyers call me and they say, we have a list of homes we'd like to see. How do they have a list of homes? They don't have MLS. They have their phones. So they have found, and they've only seen the pictures through the internet, a list of many, many, many homes. In fact, I may never send them homes that I can recommend to them. They send them to me.
Yes, that's been a big change.
Big change. And we are going to go look at those homes. It's my job to schedule them. So I need to schedule those homes, but they may have given me that list at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, and the only time they can look at homes is from 10 to 12 the following day. And if your showing instructions say you need 24 or 48 hours notice, we're not going to be able to look at your house. And what I want is my buyers to see your house, and what you want is buyers to see your house. So another thing that happens is, as we're driving around to look at the houses that are on our list, is we're going to pass some houses. And one thing that's happened to me before is we'll pass a house, they'll pull over, and they'll stop and they'll put in their little Google search bar that address. They'll pull it up. It's in our price range. It's 4 bedrooms. Why isn't this on our list? Well, it had something that they didn't use as criteria. But I've had someone who we were able to get in right then. I called the scheduling company. They said, yeah, we're going to see if we can get in. So got in pretty quickly. Or maybe we had to go see a few more and come back, because they said, can you give us 20 minutes? Yes, we can do that. We'll come back. And they bought that house. So getting the feet in the door made the difference. So be as flexible as you can on scheduling, and you do have to leave. They're going to feel so uncomfortable if you're there that they won't really feel free, and because we're walking in looking at pros and cons. They're trying to be objective, okay, as they walk through. What they're looking for is light and spacious. And they're trying to envision themselves living here. So depersonalizing is one thing your agent's going to recommend to you when you sell your home. Taking down the family photos, taking down so much of your personalized stuff, your collectibles. You know, take half the stuff off your shelves. Take half the stuff out of your closets, because they're looking to see if you have more storage than they have now. Mm-hmm. And if your closets are full, they don't think you have enough storage.
Right.
If your shelves are full, you don't have enough space. So you want your house to look airy, light, and spacious. So that's the goal I want my buyers to see, because I want them to buy a house too. They're looking for light and spacious and storage and ease of scheduling. So
Great, thank you, thank you. So Scott, we kind of went over some of these things because your moderator was out of control. But it never hurts to go back and review these things, that a pre-listing inspection can benefit the seller.
Yes, so remember, a pre-listing inspection and for an inspection for the buyer, the same inspection. Now, if you do a pre-listing inspection, remember you have to disclose the inspection report, but that can be helpful. You know, the inspector can find issues in the home and you can go and fix some of the issues, and then when the buyer, you send them the report, you can say, I fixed this, or tuned up the AC unit, or replaced the roof, because you have to do that to sell it anyway. So you can get ahead of it. But I will say, the buyer probably will do their own inspection too, and both inspection reports will look a little different, because I have different ideas than the other inspector. You know, I may think this is one way and they may not agree with me. So, you know, personal preference sometimes changes the inspection report. And it does help, you know, find any issues that, you know, when's the last time you went in the crawl space? You know, is there water standing down there, pipes leaking? When's the last time you went in the attic? So that's the stuff that we as inspectors do.
Now, we just had a house that we sold, and when they went through the inspection, the home inspector found that the drainage pan that's connected to the HVAC system, the overflow pan, was clogged up. And then when we went to the garage, where they had the hot water heater kind of tucked into the corner, lesson for us, because oftentimes we forget that we need to look everywhere like this when we go in. But what they had up there in the ceiling was black. So they thought what? Mold. And through the home inspector, it was the overflow pan from your HVAC that was clogged up, so all that water was seeping over, creating that problem in that house. Which, how often do you walk out to your garage and look to see, is there something above the water heater? So it's, those are the kinds of things that Scott discovers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Debbie, let's move forward.
We're on the same slide.
Oh, we're on the same slide. Okay, great. So we already talked about there's no difference between the seller
Correct.
inspection and the buyer inspection. How long does it take you to do a home inspection?
It really depends on the size of the home, but you can say 1 hour per 1,000 square feet. And that's just a normal inspection. If you start including pools and septics, that it can take longer than that. So 3 to 4 hours is average for an average home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even on days like today, you're in the attic, right?
Absolutely, roof, attic,
Yeah.
underneath the house. Yeah,
Okay.
the heat. Rain, if it's pouring down rain or snowing, we still go up.
Okay.
Except for the roof. I'm not getting on the roof and ice.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of different questions that maybe we hadn't planned for today. From your part of it, when you're working with somebody like Paige's buyer, do you make recommendations on the types of repairs that the buyer should get done?
Kind of, yeah. We have to watch what we say. You know, our lawyers get mad at us sometimes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we can recommend certain items.
Okay.
You know,
Whether it's something that's really serious or maybe
Right.
you gotta choose this over that?
you know, hail damage on roofs, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah. Well, so I brought that up because John is also a real estate agent when he's not taking pictures. We have found for a lot of us that sometimes a home inspector, when you have your buyer, can scare the living daylights out of that buyer to make them think, oh my gosh, this house is going to fall down. So, I mean, it's important. He's not there to save the deal for either one of us. It's kind of like the title company. They're not there to represent, their attorneys don't represent any of us. Their job is to do the job right. But the way that the message is delivered is important to the buyers, because if they're first-time home buyers, everything could seem like, oh my gosh, there's so many deficiencies here. And could you just maybe talk to us a little bit about what you would think would be a deficiency?
Well, that's what the text report, you know, the
Right.
track tells us what
Right.
a deficiency is, but, you know, it can be as little as a cover plate's missing on an outlet or switch. That's a deficiency. Or it could be as bad as, you know, hail damage on the roof and the roof needs to be
Or a
replaced.
hole in the screen?
Or a hole in the screen, or a joint crack.
Yeah.
That's cosmetic in the wall.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
deficient, so.
yeah. So, you know, do you have a book, kind of like a Bible, that you have to go through to tell you what to mark and what doesn't? I mean, from through experience, you know, but I mean, there's got to be some kind of a guide for you.
Oh yeah,
that
it's called the
says-
Standards of Practice. You can get it on the you know, the TREC website if anyone's interested.
And
But
what's
yeah,
TREC?
Texas Real Estate Commission.
Okay, so keep that in mind. You can get that on the TREC website, Texas Real Estate Commission. There's a lot of things that you can get there.
You can also look up inspectors and see if they were disciplined or in trouble,
Yes, yeah.
And agents too.
or agents too, yeah.
So John, just kind of bringing it back home to you, with your seller, getting a pre-listing inspection. I had mentioned it earlier that that's the kind of thing that we suggest to a client that we're working with. How does that help them?
Well, there was a time we didn't do that. It wasn't that common that you recommended a pre-listing, but I think it's money well spent, quite frankly, because they can get out ahead of some of the potential deal killers before buyers start looking at a house. And so we found it's a good idea. We can, remember I said we ask them to set a budget, so that helps us figure out what would be a good use of the money we've set aside as a budget to do some fix-up in the house. And it keeps us from getting into trouble later. I mean, you may not know that your electrical panel is one that was discontinued and should be replaced or something like that. And that's going to come up in an inspection. And so it would be better to know that in advance before you have it on the market, and then you're going, oh, now what do I do? I've got to get an electrician and that type of thing,
So I think there's a form, though, that if you have a inspection, a pre-listing inspection, whether you have an inspection or not, in your handout,
Yeah,
that, no, there's those instructions, but there's another one there. I think it's called the seller's disclosure. Do you see that in your handout? So that's a document that needs to be filled out, and that's the document that Paige's buyer wants to see from you, that tells you about the house itself. Right, John?
yes, absolutely. Everybody has to fill out the seller's disclosure, and that's a good point. That may help you answer some of the questions on the seller's
Right,
disclosure.
after that home inspection,
Yep.
so you can kind of see what you need to do with that.
It's
Yeah.
actually many more pages than what you have.
Yeah, we just gave you a couple of pages on that, just so you could see a sample of it. It's I think it's 5 pages long. Yeah, so, but that's a really important document because your incoming buyer wants to know what the status is on that house. And as we say, disclose, disclose, disclose. If you don't, your neighbor will. Hey, did they tell you that they had a big plumbing leak over there? Oh, no, let me look and see. So
The
it's
neighbor
really
does on
important.
the inspection too, they'll
Yeah.
come and talk to me.
Yeah, yeah. And once there's a home inspection that's done, you disclose that on there as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So Paige, talk to us about with your inspections. How does that make your buyer feel when you know that the seller's done a home inspection?
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about a couple that closed on a house in December. Over about 9 months period of time, I showed them about 70 houses. They were looking for something specific, and it was an older home. And they were looking in the price range of $300,000 to $400,000 in an older part of Richardson. And I would say about 35% of the homes we looked at had been flipped. And so immediately when they walked in a house, they got to where they could say, lipstick on a pig. And they could tell somebody painted it, put down some floors, put up pretty light fixtures, and it's a disaster when you start looking around. Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. Then when you start opening doors, bad news. When they walked in a house and there was a pre-listing inspection and any other information, sometimes they would go ahead and have the foundation checked. And they would say, there aren't any problems. Or if there was a problem, they'd say, this is how much it costs to fix it. It gave them such a sense of confidence that they weren't hiding anything like
Yeah.
the flippers were.
Yeah.
Because flippers don't have to fill out a seller's disclosure. They never lived there. So they don't have, so when they walk in a house and there's tons of transparency, that gives them the confidence to keep walking through. And it makes them go ahead and go, you know what? We could go ahead and make an offer. And I say, well, I might want you to, I usually recommend that you go ahead and have your own inspection done. They may or may not, but I do recommend that. But the only way they can get inspections is if they get that house under contract. And then during option period, they can do their inspections. But they have the confidence to make the offer, which is what the seller wants, is some offers. Then they can start negotiating, right?
Yeah.
So it helps.
Okay, so now let's move on to something a little bit different. When convenience matters most. So let's talk about what that looks like. From the seller side, John, just briefly go over some of the tips, the points that we have there.
Well, when convenience is a priority, it could be because they need to move right away. Their kids live in Arkansas and now they want to go live near their kids, and so they just want to get the house sold as fast as possible. Sometimes they just say as is, and so there's options for that. They may have health or mobility issues and need to move to a higher level of care community, or selling a house can be very emotional. It is for people, especially that have lived there for a long time, and the kids grew up there and everything, and they just want to move on as quickly as possible. So what they are looking for ways that they can avoid the stress of getting it ready and the showings and negotiations. So they're looking for some quick sale as is possibility.
Okay, yeah. And Paige, how about for your buyers? When convenience is top of mind.
If the seller chooses what's convenient, and the buyer is looking for an as-is home, they're looking for a discounted price. And when they do have the option period to do their due diligence, they'll need it to be a little bit longer. They may do some more inspections and may need to get some contractors there to give estimates.
Scott, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I've heard the term as is a lot, and a lot of times it doesn't as is. If, the seller doesn't know the roof is bad, and no one's gonna buy a house with a bad roof or bad foundation. So you hear as is, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is as is.
Yeah, and that's actually in the
True.
contract.
True.
The buyer has to mark that they accept the property as is, but we always say that's not really what as is means. It just means that they're accepting the property as is the seller's disclosure states. What you filled out there, they accept that to be as is. But it doesn't mean they're buying it without doing any negotiating of repairs from you. That's important to remember, because that always comes up, oh, well, look, they said they're getting it as is, but that's not really what that means. So important to share that. Okay, so let's move on from buyers and sellers, and let's talk about other kinds of buyers out there. How many of you heard the term iBuyer? I'd be surprised if most of you haven't. iBuyer. Well, John, what is that?
Well, I think it stands for internet buyer, but they're people looking for houses that they're looking for fixer-uppers, basically. And there's companies out there that specialize in doing that. We even have a program for sellers that just say, I want to sell it as is. We have about, several hundred investors that we can send it out.
Right, but
to.
this is just for when they're looking for an iBuyer
On their
versus
own.
when we're working with them.
So
Directly.
anybody ever get a phone call? Somebody saying, are you interested in selling your house?
Yes.
Or a
Text.
text? Yeah, now we're getting text or a phone call,
Postcard.
a postcard, a letter, emails. They're just out there trying to find deals that they can make an offer on.
Yeah.
How do they find those phone numbers? How do they find those?
They buy lists, and then they just
Dark web.
start dialing with this. We say dialing for dollars, dialing through the neighborhood, one right
Well,
after
and
the other.
there's
Or somebody may
programs you can
have,
look
somebody
up.
may have a house on the market, and then they look for phone numbers that match around that area so that they can start to call.
There's programs you can look up phone numbers in. Unfortunately, they don't always mark them as on the do not call list and everything. So, that's just the way it is. There's lots of programs where I can find people's phone numbers out there.
So instant offers, that's another thing. So I have somebody right now that is in Waxahachie and really would like to make a move to something much smaller than where they are. And he sent me an email last week and he said, I want an instant offer. Okay, well, we have programs as real estate agents that allow us to get instant offers. And that's what that means, an instant offer. What would I pay for your house right now? I'd say his house probably should go on the market for, I would say somewhere between $700 and $720. And the instant offer came back at $564. But it was an instant offer.
And he
If you want to
wouldn't
sell
get-
real quick, this is what I'll give you. So John, talk more about instant offers and iBuyers.
Well, sellers may call some companies out there that we buy ugly house type companies, and they'll get an offer. And usually if they make an offer and then you say, well, let me think about it, and you go back and say, well, I've decided to accept it, guess what happens?
It's lowered.
That's right. Well, that's what we offered you then, but right now we can't go that high
Yeah.
based on the market or whatever. So usually the first offer they make, if you don't take it immediately, it's going to go down from there. It's also usually subject to inspections. So what a lot of them will do, they'll make a higher offer and know that when they go in, they're going to beat you up for everything they find wrong in the house and come back with another one. And usually they try to close within a week to 2 weeks. So that's the good thing is if you need to go real fast and everything, these people can close fast because they're cash buyers.
Well, and Scott, they're usually not calling you to do that inspection.
No.
They have their own construction guy that's
Yeah, or
going to
they
go
call
in.
their own, they
Yeah.
call an HVAC company.
Yeah, they got their own people that they want to do the inspection with.
Because they want it cheap.
And they want it cheap, is exactly right, because they're trying to get a deal. Okay. So what should sellers watch out for?
Low ball or lower than market offers. And again, if you don't have an agent that represents you, you really don't know what the market's doing in your area. And looking on Zillow is not a good way to find out the value of your house. Sometimes they're pretty close, and sometimes I've seen them $50,000, $60,000 off.
Yeah.
So they just have a computer coming up with those things. It's not like a real person. Higher service fees. A lot of times these people say, they make you the offer, then they got all these service fees to get to closing. Really no negotiation flexibility. It is what it is. And as I mentioned before, the initial offer usually gets reduced significantly, especially after they've done a walkthrough. They're just trying to get the opportunity to come in the door to get you sign a contract.
So here's the other side of that, though. If you are working with a real estate professional and you're interested in investors or iBuyers, how does that pay off?
Are you talking from a buyer's perspective?
I'm talking from the seller's perspective.
Okay, repeat the question.
Oh, okay, sure. Are there more secure ways to sell to an investor?
Yeah, I use a real estate agent who has a bunch of investors that they can throw it out to. And the good thing about that is a lot of times there's an investor willing to pay more because they don't have any properties to work on or whatever, and they're looking to get a property and an inventory that they can work on, fix up, and sell. So we see usually when we get multiple offers from investors all over the board, and usually there's one or two that are significantly higher.
Yeah, the other thing about that too is that when you have a realtor that's working on your behalf, and maybe it is going to be an as-is sell, we have the networks that John mentioned earlier. So we have more control over the representation. We have networks to work with, like our iFinder.
Right. iFinder is just basically a group of several hundred investors that have been pre-approved. We know that they have money. So if they make an offer, they can pay for it. They have to show that they have $400,000 in a bank account.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason. And the other reason that work with an agent to help you through that is we can help negotiate when they come back and start saying, well, this needs to be repaired and that type of thing. So.
Yeah. And the other part of that too is that when you're working with an agent and you're going to sell as is, you have leverage that you can negotiate maybe a timeline. I'd really like to sell it as is because I don't want to do any repairs on it, but I'm going to need 30 days before I can move out. And you have somebody that's familiar with how those things work that can negotiate with that with you, versus you going out on the internet and asking for an instant offer and they're saying, this is my price today, and if you take it, I need you out before the end of the month. And that's how it's going to work. And if you can't be out, that's the end of the story for us. So that's important. The investor buyers that are out there today are very aggressive, as a lot of you may know that have gotten the phone calls or the handwritten notes in the mail.
Yeah, we actually had a client that got a cash offer and they needed several months, and we got the guy that buying the house to just give them several months to get out of there.
Which worked out really well for them. to make that happen. And then when there's an agent involved, so is that something that Paige would be bringing you a buyer, or when you're doing an iBuyer, how's that work, John?
Well, no, usually there's not another agent involved with an iBuyer, so the commission is half of what you would normally pay as a seller
Yeah.
for us to represent you, because they don't have an agent representing them, they just negotiate on their own. So
And
that saves some money in the commission.
If I could just add to that, a lot of the iBuyers that we see today are real estate agents. But because they're getting the benefit of buying your house for less, they're not going to ask for compensation because they're getting the house. So like John was saying, you only have that one side that you're paying for protection and representation, which is the agent that brought you the investor.
Some of them have tried to build that in, but we've told them no.
Yeah, no. Okay, go ahead and move on. Okay, so now we're going to move into value versus convenience. And just, this form is in your handout, and we put this in here for you to take along with you, just so that you could kind of see, where do I fit with this lesson that I had today? Value-driven path. So are you the one that says, I want to get top dollar for my home, and I'm okay doing some repairs to make that happen? A lot of times people will say, I'm not in a hurry. I want to get top dollar for my home. I'd like to get some new floors or maybe some new windows. I know that's going to be a big benefit to me in the future, but I want to have some time to appreciate that myself versus getting it all done and then putting it on the market. So is that you? Or like I just said, I'm not in a rush to sell. Or I feel emotionally ready to part with the home. So I have a client right now that I thought we would never get to this place because we've talked a lot. I love my home. I've lived here 50 years. I'm never going to leave it. I might like to work with an investor, but I'm not really sure. And now we have had somebody that came in, gave her a really great price, gave her a long time to stay until she could get everything packed up the way she wants it. And now our conversations, without me even nurturing that, which I really try not to, are, oh my God, I'm going to say it this way, I want to apologize ahead of time. I can't wait to get the hell out of here. So, you know, those things can change depending upon your situation. Go to the next one. Convenience-driven path. Is this you? Are you looking at, I need, or I want to move quickly. I got to get it done. I thought about it long enough. Let's get her done. I don't want to wait any longer. I'm open to selling as is. What does that look like for me? Should I talk to somebody to see what that could be? Or I need it to reduce the stress because that's more important to me right now than maximizing the profit. I've lived in my home 50 years. I've enjoyed it. I've loved it. I've got lots of memories here, but I'm ready to move on. Let's get that done. It's more convenient for me to do it like that. So how to decide what's right for you? Well, you want to talk to somebody that knows about that side of the business. We talked about having a real estate agent. We talked about a title company. Attorneys are also people that can guide you on that as well. A lot of times, did you know that attorneys can actually buy properties themselves without a real estate agent because they have that benefit to their license? Consider a pre-listing inspection before you put your house on the market so that you can feel good about, oh gosh, there's hardly anything on here I need to fix. I'm going to go ahead and do it and show the buyer I did all this, because that makes them more interested in you. Or it may look like, holy moly, that's a big deal. Let's see if we can get an as-is sale, right? How about this one? Ask for a pre-listing net sheet. So when somebody comes to talk to you about selling your house and they tell you, I think it would sell for this amount, ask them for a net sheet. The net sheet's going to show you, when it's all said and done, how much you're going to put in your pocket. You all want to know that, right? Or if you get multiple offers, so let's say that you decide to go the investor route and you have 4 or 5 offers from investors, you want to make sure and get a net sheet from each one of them, because I want you to think of it this way. Value versus convenience. Is the value I'm getting from them convenient for my timeline? Is it easier for me to go ahead and take that amount and put this in my pocket because I can go now? Or Do I want to renegotiate that and see if I can wait a little longer and see if I can get more because I got to do a couple things? That might be the question. The value of working with a professional, that's super important. I mean, we wouldn't be here telling you that if it was super easy and risk-free if you could just go out there and do it. Now, there's some of you here today that would say, I've got the experience that I need and I can sell it on my own. I don't need any of that. That's not the majority, though. So looking at this, we've got guidance when you're working with a professional, guidance through every step, somebody that knows the market. That's important. Staying on top of the market. What are the numbers? What's the interest rates? What's happening in that area? Strategic advice to help you balance value versus convenience, which we just spoke about. Having a trusted network of home inspectors. There's a lot of inspectors out there, and so here's how we work this, and I'm pretty sure other agents do too. If somebody calls me and says, I want to have a home inspection, can you send me some inspectors? Well, really and truly, the way we're told to do that is send 3 choices. That way we're not driving you to use that person. I will tell you, in our case, he's always going to be on the list for us because he does such a good job. But there's other people that we want you to give an opportunity to so that you don't feel like, well, they're steering me to that person. Negotiation skills to protect your bottom line so that the first offer you get, they don't say, good, this is it, let's execute it. Because there may be a way, even with an investor, that you can come back and counter the offer, which we did just recently with 2 different iBuyer investors. We want more. We need you to come up with more in order for us to do this. And then the last one here, the obvious one, less stress, fewer surprises, and greater peace of mind. That's what you want. So questions to ask yourself before deciding what to do. Selling the family home for value or convenience. What's your timeline? Where are you going to go? Have you found a place to go? Have you already made some decisions on what to do? Do you have a support system? Remember, I just told you about the neighbor across the street. Oh, I tell you, I think about in the morning when I open the curtains that I'm going to see him laying on his front lawn. He is just killing himself over there, and he's got 2 grown children, but he doesn't want help. And that's his choice. What's your comfort level with the selling process? One thing that Paige didn't talk about, and John didn't either, which is really important, is open houses. People want to come through your home. They both said you can't be there. But how comfortable are you with scheduling an open house? On Sunday from 2 to 4, my front door's open. Come on in and take a look. How comfortable are you with that? That's really important. Negotiations and repairs. Repairs are the obvious thing. You want somebody that can negotiate on your behalf. What's your priority? Maximum profit or convenience? We've talked about that a lot today. Is your home competitive in its current condition? So, Paige alluded earlier today, and I believe John has as well, you can go on the internet to, let's say, Zillow or Realtor.com, and you can look up addresses. Maybe you got a couple signs in your neighborhood. Look it up because you'll get to see the pictures of what they look like inside. And that's where you get to say, what do they have that I don't have, or what do I have that they don't have? That's super important. You want that so that you can make the right comparison. Just because you put your roof on 10 years ago doesn't mean that you're going to get top dollar. So it's those kinds of things. Or maybe I upgraded my kitchen and I've got all stainless steel appliances, but I still have linoleum on the floor, which has worked fine for me. Well, that's going to be a different thing when people come to look because of how the markets works today. I would say this. It's really hard to find a house that's on the market today that hasn't been updated in one way or another. Would updates increase the appeal and increase your net proceeds? That's up to you. Do I have a little cash that I could spend on that? And then you want to work with your professional and find out, how do you think that will help me when I price it, based on all the comparables that are out there. And are you willing or able to invest now or sell as is and move on? That's your other question. How does that work? What does that look like for me? Here's the last thing that we talked about the other day, and I thought it was super important that we remind you of this, especially when you're talking about selling. You know, you hear all these commercials about home title lock and somebody else going in, and all of a sudden you find out that you really don't own your home. Somebody else has already gone into the county and there's a deed on your home, but it's not in your name. So these are some things that you can do. Debbie put some links on here for you, but really and truly, if you just go out to the internet and you type in property search alert Tarrant County, you're going to get something that's going to show up there where you can look up your property to see if anything's happened. Now, John has had that set up for us for a long time, John Sullivan. So, I mean, how many times does he get notices that something's going on because he's John Sullivan? But, you know, or Don Smith. But it is something that you want to check. Just be curious. Has anybody tried to do that? Debbie, how many, is it 159?
I think Tarrant County said there's 159 different documents that they monitor for changes.
Yeah. So check that out and see how that works for you. And then let's just kind of sum this up. What did we learn today being together? Thank you again for coming and listening. Every seller's situation is unique. I think we all agree, based on what we've got going on in our lives right now. Value means more than just price. It really does. Convenience can come at a cost. It just doesn't work for me to go right now. But the market's hot right now. You know, you need to look at what's going on in the real estate market at that time if you have that plan. Preparation affects your bottom line. What are the few little things I could do just to get ready if I needed to? Because we never want to be 11th hour people doing those kinds of things. And professionals help you avoid costly mistakes. So talking to somebody, working with somebody that's actually active in those areas that we talked about. Scott, for an example, I'd like to have a home inspection, so it's based on the square footage of your home.
Yeah, for price.
It depends on whether you got a pool or not, what kind of system you got. So I mean, could I just ask for an example? My house is 2,000 square feet.
500 bucks.
500 bucks. 500 bucks to get a home inspection that's going to show you all of the things that are wonderful and some things that might need attention. Yeah?
Yeah, correct.
And how long is that good for, I guess?
The inspection report, we say, is good until we leave the house.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Okay. All
The
right.
reason we say that is because an air conditioner can fail. It could be working and then
Right.
stop working the next day or that
Yeah.
night.
Good point.
Things happen.
Yeah. And I think one other thing I wanted to mention earlier about Scott, and I was looking for a place to say that. While he knows what to look for, and based on his background, he's very savvy on those things, he's not the final answer.
Correct.
If he suspects that your house has foundation problems, his suggestion is going to be
Get an engineer.
consult an engineer. Same thing, if he suspects that there's electrical problems there, he's going to suggest
Electrician.
that you get with an electrician. So he's not the final answer, but he is the beginnings to tell you where you need to look and what you need to do, right?
Exactly.
So asking the right questions leads to better decisions based on what we've learned. Did y'all learn something today that you didn't know before you came here? That's what we're hoping for always. Okay, so questions? Let's take a few minutes and do some, yes?
Okay, I live in Arlington on Clay. I have foundation problems. I've had them fixed. That's no good. So do I try and fix them again before I try to sell? Or do I just disclose it? And supposedly I have lifetime warranties, but
Yeah, it's
I don't
only
think they're
lifetime
any
on what
good,
the
so-
word. Did you call an engineer or a foundation
I
company?
I called a structural engineer 30 years ago. And everything, and I did everything he said to the T, and it still didn't do it.
Well, they've updated their practices from 30 years ago to today. You know, a lot of engineers, if your house is moved anymore, they just say leave it alone. You know, 30 years ago it was mud jack and level it up. So, you know, they've different thoughts now. I did a class with a structural engineer, and he said 99.9% of houses that said foundation work didn't really need it. Deflection's
Well, I
not
mean, I
enough.
saw cracks everywhere.
Yeah, but cracks doesn't necessarily mean
But
foundation.
pier and beam is important, isn't it?
Is it pier and beam?
Yeah.
You can probably just shim it up. and
That's what
be
I was gonna
okay.
say, just
Yeah.
shim it up.
Oh, they have.
You might
And that
have
might
to
be an
make-
adjustment that you
Three
need.
different things,
Yes, Shimmy.
3 different times.
You may want to just call a structural engineer again and have them crawl it and look at it.
Okay.
Because sometimes just that report is what you need that says,
I would certainly
it's
disclose
good.
it because I mean, you can tell.
Yeah.
And I've got all the documentation.
If you need a good engineer, I know 2 of them.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll talk to you in a minute.
All right. Who else? Leslie?
With regard to repairs, pre-sale, if you have a pet, a dog, and you've got engineered hardwood
Mm-hmm.
and it has scratches from the claws, I don't think that can be sanded, can it?
Depends on the type
Some.
of flooring. Some
Okay.
can, some
But
can't.
say it can, and you, and people, will a buyer typically accept an amount of money offer for them to do that after you're out?
A lot of times they'll try to negotiate a flooring allowance with you.
Yeah.
Wait and see what
Because, I
they
mean, anyone
ask
with
for.
blonde woods, and if you were gonna redo it, you'd probably do a dark wood.
Yeah.
And that may make a difference to somebody that's really interested in the house, but.
If it has to do with flooring, wait and see what they ask for in a repair request while they're in option
It might not be a
period.
big deal.
Yeah.
They may be pulling everything up.
Probably
Yeah.
have their own dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Irene?
About how far in advance should a pre-inspection be done, even though you're not selling the house for another year or something? Is there a timing on that? That you know?
Depends, are you planning on fixing a lot of stuff in the report or just
I hope not. I don't know.
probably a month or so? You know, you
Yeah.
can even do it a week
Yeah.
or 2.
I mean, unless you've got big stuff, but, yeah. Okay, who else? Yeah, Joan?
Have a mortgage, can they still do that farm order thing?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. They can, they can. John and I did a home improvement loan several years ago to update our bathrooms and kitchen and blah, blah, blah. So we have a small balance on that. So I mean, yeah, they can still find out what you got. Yeah.
I paid cash for mine, so I've been there 15 years, I think. You think they can still look? They can.
Yeah, I think so. I think you should just check.
Still here.
They hardly
Yeah.
ever do.
Well, in the home title lock, you know, so you just have to look at both things. If the county is keeping you up to date on that, John, when you've got notices, what do they say?
Just a document's been entered with the name John Sullivan on it. There's lots of John Sullivans out there, but I just put in, notify me any time a document is filed with the county with the name John Sullivan on it. And and I don't get them that often, maybe a couple a year, and usually it's another John Sullivan.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what you could do for it. Yes?
I would want to sell my house, but can you help people who don't want to buy another house, they need to figure out where to move? 55 and up?
Yes,
or-
yes. That's what we have our education partners. So we work with lots of different retirement communities. Depending upon where you're looking for, 55 and older, or you're looking for independent living, yeah.
Or maybe a duplex
Yeah,
someplace?
yep.
Or a townhouse?
Yep.
I'm trying to understand my options.
Yep. And that's always good to see, because you might want to look to see, if I sell, what would I be paying in rent? To make sure that that fits within the budget that I had set aside for that. Yeah, sure. Who else? Yes.
I have a question about disclosure on noise pollution. You have a high school over here with the marching band and football band, and then you have the railroad tracks over here that are making noise 3 times a day, and then you're on the flight path for the airline. What's
That's tricky.
disclosure on noise pollution?
There's nothing on the seller's disclosure for that.
No, and you know, really
There
and
is
truly,
something.
it is frustrating because people that are not familiar with that environment, it drives them, in a lot of cases, drives them away. But what it becomes for people that live that way, it's white noise. You don't even hear that anymore. It's white noise. But that person's looking for is, what else does that neighborhood offer?
So does that fall under the buyer then, to find out about noise pollution?
Yeah, what I would encourage my buyers to do is go drive around the neighborhood. Have a meal at a restaurant near there. Sit outside. You know, you just have to be there to see what your tolerance would be for that noise level.
Yeah.
If they're near a high school, everybody's going to figure that out. There's a football stadium. You know, what are those stadium lights going to do? I mean, that's the first thing everybody thinks of when they see a school like that.
Well,
And a
I
railroad
also-
track is if it runs,
Yeah.
you know, pretty close to the backyard, you know there's trains going to be coming by.
Yeah, I mean, John, the other thing that is also kind of precautionary for some buyers is if you live next to an elementary school, because during a certain time of the day, the whole street's lined up with parents waiting to pick up their kids, right? So there's no parking, but not on the weekends. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, depending on how far out you're looking to buy, make sure crypto, one of these big electrical things for the crypto's not gonna be, built right by your house. I hear those things 24/7 are loud.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yep.
Is there a way to determine the railroad cars' noise routine? Is there some way? to
Their
look up
schedule,
A schedule of.
we've done that. I mean, we basically have called the county to see what yeah.
I live right on Bonds Ranch, which is where BNSF comes through like 20 sometimes a day. They did a study, they stopped traffic for over 2 hours a day. And you just never know. And one of my best friends is a group vice president for BNSF. He's in charge of a lot of the trains and he doesn't know. So
Be able to find out.
you'd
I
have to
think-
call the railroad, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
probably.
even they may not know because depending on freight loads and their schedules, it may not be consistent. You know, I can say, well, this train runs from Fort Worth to Oklahoma carrying passengers every day, but all these others, the car
you
carriers
never
and
know.
stuff, you
Yeah.
just don't know.
That is a tough one. A funny story, when John and I first got together, we lived in a house in Louisville, Colorado. Adorable, cute little, I like to say, love shack. It was our great little place. It was so tiny, it was so cute. But what came with that beautiful little place, the train went through our backyard every night from 2:30 until 4:30.
Oh,
Right there.
Did you know that when you bought it?
No, heck no.
Well, you didn't tell them the other thing. It was right next door to the volunteer
That's right,
fire
it was right next
department.
to the volunteer fire department.
And they'd have a call, they'd be parking in our yard and everything, you know, and
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Wow.
if I could just beleaguer that, John's parents came to visit us from Texas because we're in Colorado. And at the time, we didn't have a guest room, so we had a sleeper couch. And they were there in the living room in sleeper couch, and the windows were open, and it was the day that the fire department decided to empty the water. So there was water shooting up, and
Oh
guess
my
what?
gosh.
Came right in that window.
oh, that's
It was a
so
lot of
funny.
fun. Okay, anybody else before we end? Yes.
Well, I'm very interested in the question, but I'm thinking I would like to have a timeline that's like 10 years or 15 years. But I'm still interested in making the improvements that, I can enjoy in the meantime that would also be good for the house. How would that work? Is that anything that y'all can help with?
Yes. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll come out on a consultation, and really and truly we're doing that to kind of look to see what are your goals, and we can sit down and we can look at it from the standpoint of what's the condition of your house right now, and if you wanted to make some upgrades, what kind of upgrades are going to bring you the most money, right? So that you can start to plan those out. and keep you posted on that, and also keep you posted on what's going on in the market at the time. Because you want to know what's selling around you. And there's certain times in the real estate market where from March until here in just another week, that's when we're hot and heavy. Everything's going to get the kids into school, and then all of a sudden, it's quiet. Everybody's worn out from that. And then it starts up again towards the end of September because everybody's settled in, and then we're moving to the fall. So it's that kind of planning, just to kind of keep you apprised of what's going on. I have offered this in the past. There's a program that some of you here use. It's called HomeBot. HomeBot. And if you'll send or put it on your evaluation sheet, your feedback sheet, let me know. I'll email it to you. Sylvia, I think you have it. And Jim, I know you have it. But what it does is it just kind of keeps you apprised of what's going on out there, and with your and what you can do with the equity that you have in your home. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that comes with it. It's not a salesy thing. It's not meant to call me today, let's write a contract. It's just information on where you are. And I'm happy to send that to you. Anything else I missed over here that you guys thought? Yeah.
No. Question was, you just touched on it a little bit. Our neighbors interviewed 5 realtors before they picked one for selling. What's your thought on that?
Well, everybody's got their number. And if I know that I'm going up against 3 realtors, I guess I would want to be the one. My question to you would be, who are you seeing first?
No, the neighbors did it, and I thought.
Well, I'm just playing, role playing with you.
Yeah, okay.
So you're going to interview 3 real estate agents, and you'd like me to come out and give you a quote on your home. And I'd like to know, have you already met with the other realtors? Or no, you're going to be the first one that's going to come. You know, that's kind of what, it's that competitive thing. I want to know where I'm going to stand with that so that I can be prepared. And you may say it's none of my business, just come. But you know, some people want to make sure that they've got, sometimes it's the personality that they're looking for. Does that person get me? Do they match up with me? Do I feel like they're going to do a good job? Or I've been listening to AM radio, and I'm hearing about all these realtors that are selling these houses, and if you want to get a good deal, call Chris Waters. You know, something like that. So it kind of depends. It's really based on getting together and having that conversation.
Well, I think they did that because investors are starting to swoop into our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a little bit off the subject, but yet it's not. I'm disabled, so therefore I'm very low income. And there are updates I would like to do to my home before I consider selling it, because, you know, I know without the updates, you know, I'm gonna get less money. So do y'all know of organizations or where I can go to, you know, get assistance on that, or government programs?
Well, let me just give you an answer, and I think that Paige wants to share something as well. Depending upon what it is, what your timeline is, let's say your house needs foundation work. But you know,
It's just,
well, I'm just giving you an example. So let's say your house needs foundation work, and you're thinking that I'm probably going to want to sell my home in the fall. Depending upon who you're working with, the foundation company will go ahead and do the work and set it up for you to pay at close. So it's not out of your pocket
for
right
5
now,
to
but
6
you're
years.
stabilizing your home. To pay it close.
Once you're
But
in
that type of opportunity is one where you have to show that you have a relationship and a contract with a real estate agent for a future sale. That would be one.
You can also stop your property taxes.
Yes.
done that.
Okay, and they collect when the house is eventually sold,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of some of the city and county programs. There's a weatherization program where they'll come, if you qualify income-wise, and take care of some weather stripping, and they'll look at your windows. Sometimes you can get new windows and some of those programs. And those are
Siding.
considered, siding. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Good point.
yes.
Carlos?
You didn't ask me to do this, but anybody here, I don't know who, I couldn't see who asked about how many real estate agents you should interview. If you're, unless this is your first time here, if you've been here and you've added, if you've received value from what those 3 real estate agents have provided, I've witnessed the kind of work that they do. You guys can spend all the time going to dinner and just, you don't have to interview 5 of them. So.
Thank you, Carlos. That was really sweet of you to do that. Thank you.